Hey guys, this is Shannon Lynch, your local realtor here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thanks for joining me. Today, my guest is my very good friend, very dear person, and longtime landlord, Tom Latimer. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm pleased to be here with you.
I'm thrilled that you're here. You and I met many, many moons ago at one of the local real estate investor associations, and I've always looked up to you as someone who's been in the game a long time, and it's just very impressive to me what you've done over your real estate career with your portfolio, and I will never forget the day that I had done my very first rehab, and we were getting paid, and we were so excited because we were going to make $30,000 on our rehab renovation. That was our profit, and we just felt like, wow, we knocked that out of the ballpark, you know. And you sat me down, and you said, "Come here, I want to talk to you." Do you remember this?
Oh, yes.
And you schooled me on, you younger folks think that, rehabbing is so glamorous. That's what you said to me. I don't know if you remember that. You younger people come in and you think that rehabbing, and it's glamorous and it's pretty houses and blah, 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 blah. You said, but you talked about landlording to me, and you talked about what I thought was really interesting was basically the big picture and the long game. You gave the description of a duplex. Do you want to tell that story?
Oh, yeah, because even this morning on my way here, I decided among myself that we were on one end of remount rather than the other, so I'm probably not a half a mile from my first purchase of real estate in Charlotte, and I purchased this property in 1975. And Shannon was referring to one of the meetings we have, that you have the wholesalers and the flippers, and they get in there and they said, I bought this property for X amount of money, I put X amount of money in it, and I flipped it, and I made this. And I mean, it's almost like there's a standing ovation with the people in their seat. I mean, they're high-fiving each other and everything else.
And they're showing off the checks.
Oh, yeah. And I said, then I had to come up behind them, and I said, I know I don't have the glamour and the wax job and all of the other things that these flippers have. But I said, I got a property that I had purchased, and I purchased it for like $18,000. And I said, I've had that property with one family that's been in that same property for now it's 28 years.
That's incredible.
And I said, when I start trying to figure out my return on investments, I can't go that high, because currently, even on that property, I'm almost getting $18,000 a year in rent, and no one has given me a notice to move. So that property is still income producing, but it's a marathon and it's not a sprint. And that's the encouragement I always want to make to people, is that your business has to be looked at as a marathon and not a sprint, because the person who flipped that property are paying higher capital gains. Mm-hmm. And now once the money is used and spent, they got to go out and look for another nugget they can do that with. And many times they can't find that same nugget. And so therefore they're still looking, and I still got the property that the first of the month, I'm getting 2 checks every month on that same property for now 45 years.
It's amazing. At the time that we spoke, you said, I have a lady, she's been staying with me, and she said she was going to be late on the rent for the first time ever, and it was her birthday, and she came to you and she said, Mr. Tom, I've never been late, and you need to waive my late fees. And you said, I sat there and I looked at it and I went, okay, I'll do that this one time. And then you sat down and you started doing the numbers. And you told me you were getting, if we keep the numbers simple, like maybe you were getting $500 a month, right? And so that was times 12 months. And then times, that woman had been with you, I think, 20 some odd years. Yes. And when we ran the numbers, it came out to something like, I forget if it was like $250,000 or something to that effect. Right. And then you went on to say, and she hasn't even been with me the entire time I've owned the property.
Right.
So it's even longer than that. And then you said, and times 2, because it's a duplex. And I was mind blown when I sat there and thought about the fact that that property has made well over $500,000 in the time that you've owned it. Now, of course, subtracting vacancies, subtracting, maintenance, that sort of thing, but when you look at it in the big picture like that, it's really kind of mind blowing, because you're right. Like, landlording is not the most glamorous. It's broken toilets, and it's tenants, and it's, evictions, and it's, it's not the glitz and glam of, oh, you put in, the latest, gas stove, or look at this beautiful granite, or, that sort of thing. But you're right. Once you are done with the project, you have to go and find the next one.
Right.
And the competition has gotten really, really crazy in Charlotte. How did you get started?
Well, Shannon, back in the 70s, we didn't have groups like REARs and subgroups and others that were there. And most of the time, no one would share information with you because they thought you would be a competitor. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this stuff has been, from the school of experience and just kind of learn as you go. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a supervisor for UPS for a few years, and I came back and I was a supervisor in the school system. But I knew I wanted to be in business, and so I did multi-level companies, selling this and Amway and this way and the other way, and I did that for a while. But I realized at the end that it could not get me to where I wanted to go, and so when I purchased this duplex, I realized then that when I went to see I didn't have a CPA then. I could go to H&R Block or anyone because there was nothing there. And I said, I would say to, young families or other interested investors was, I wanted to have something of a business that would give me the same deduction as Warren Buffett or Bill Gates with Microsoft. On a much smaller scale. So I understood that when I went to Home Depot or one of the stores to buy paint, that I could deduct it. I could deduct the mileage. If I went to a business seminar, I could deduct that. And so therefore, even though I had a 9-to-5 job, it was with a W-2, and I had nothing I could deduct. But once I got my business going, I had things I could deduct, and once I realized I could deduct more, then I understood that Uncle Sam started giving me back my taxable money back to me because I had deductions that I could lower my income, and therefore depreciation and everything else. And so I was making money not only on the property, but I was making money because Uncle Sam was giving businesses a lower tax rate, and they were highly favorable to what I was doing. So once I understood that you could do that, I didn't have to have 100 or 1,000 doors. I start with one. The plan is the same, and when you add any doors to your portfolio, the plan is already there. Mm-hmm. Deductions, and deductions. So that was kind of the mainstay. And I didn't know how to be a property manager. I started off with a duplex where my tenant was next door, and I've realized how much I didn't know. But I started taking classes, like at CPC. I took a plumbing class. I took an HVAC class. I took a carpentry class. And so for about 20 years in this business, I put in sweat equity. Yeah. I said, I get off my day job, and I would be hanging wallpaper and cleaning carpet from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night and on Saturday. So I didn't build a business. I built my business with my own blood, sweat, and tears.
I love that. And that's a really great point that you bring up. Those classes, I believe, are still offered at CPCC. Well,
they still are, and I don't want to harp on the new generations, but everybody feel like they have to multitask and that they get property, and the first thing they want to do is give it to a property manager. And the property manager, they got their own people that they use, the plumbers and everyone else that they're using. And many times the owner of the property, have no clue of what they are paying or anything else. So normally when I have to bring an outside person in, I'm there looking at them. And I said, when I see what they do the first time, I know what to do the second time. And so therefore, I kept doing everything, in this business. And one thing I would always say is that when the tenant pays, if the money goes into the property manager hand, then it goes in the property manager hand, and then it goes through their vendors and everything else, and then it comes to you. But when I was a direct property manager, the tenant's money came into my hand, and therefore I was squeezing it, and therefore I controlled how much would go out of it and to who it would go out to. So I was always and still completely in control of that. The money, they say the shortest distance between two distinct points is a straight line. So whoever is providing you money, you want to make sure as much as you can that it's in a straight line. It comes from the source to you, and you are the decision maker of who gets that money out of your hands.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because I feel like I'm always curious about that. You and a couple of other landlords that I know that have been really like lifetime landlords, that you guys have been doing this for decades, still seem to prefer to be hands-on. Are you still hands-on?
Yes, I am. I'm still addicted to that. Many days I'm trying to break that addiction. But, I got two families that have been with me 27, 28 years. You're not going to have that continuity.
That's a testament.
And and you're not going to have that relationship unless you believe that these people that are giving you this money, that they're the boss and that you're the servant. And so therefore having that boss-servant relationship and having that understanding with people such as that. I've had people who said, Mr. Latimer, do you have a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom? And I said, I don't have one at this time. I said, you've been a perfect person. I said, I hate to see you go. And they said, I'm not going to leave. I'll wait and see what you get. But I like working with you. I want you to be my landlord. And so when you get those type of relationships, and when their birthday comes, they get a card. If someone dies in their family, they get a card or a call or a prayer.
Wow.
And so it's that relationship building that is always greater, than the money. And I would say to anyone, it's like an agrarian type society. If you want an apple tree, you have to take a seed and put it in the ground and watch it, come up. And after that, you have to work it, you have to nurture it, you have to do all the other things to that. And so if you do all those things right, that tree will blossom and will give you apples upon apples upon apples. But you have done something to create that process. But if it's one where I would tell someone, if all you want is apple, then you could be a thief, because all you have, then you can climb the fence and take an apple off of someone else's tree. But if you plant it yourself and you know what made it grow such as that tree every year will bless you with apples upon apples upon apples, and it'll do it every year when it comes into season.
That's a really great perspective. I think the other thing, too, is when I think about bringing in a property management company, it frees up your time, right, so that you can do other things. But I feel like, and I'm like you, I've never hired a property manager. I've always managed my own properties, and I feel like I take the time to vet my tenants so much more than I feel someone else would. And when I meet with them, I show them the house, we sit down, we talk. I think we're pretty clear on what the expectations are on both sides. There's really good communication. And I want people to understand that, yes, this is my property, but this is your home while you're here.
Right.
And I want you to treat it with pride. And I want you to be, I want you to be proud of where you're living and be comfortable. But the thing too is, I think with the property managers, every time there's turnover, that equals more money in their pockets.
Right.
So is a long-term tenant in the property manager's best interest?
Well, I know it has to be because, as you said, you take away the turnover. And I'm not saying this to knock property managers, because the length that I go when I do a repair, I don't see how a property manager can do what I do for 10% or 15% if they have a portfolio of other renters. They couldn't do what you're doing, because you always will go, the extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
And if something happens where it was just, unforeseen, just like this weekend, I was on a property and the person just moved in on Saturday and had a plumbing problem. So, when I got that, I said, I'm on my way. Well, it was Saturday afternoon. It was raining and everything else like that. But I wanted that person to understand that I don't shirk my duty. If this was a repair company or a property manager, that office could have been closed until Monday morning, or it could have been on call, and someone may call back 4 or 5 hours later. But I had that immediacy to let them know that this is important to me. You are important to me, and I want you to understand when it's time to pay that's important to us to be able to do that. So you have to establish, that continuity. You have to establish a relationship and understand that it goes, back and forth. They are just as important to me as I am to them.
How did you build your portfolio? So the duplex, was that your first?
The duplex was my first, and I just got to the point where I didn't sell anything. I said, we stayed in the duplex for 3 years. And again, we were renting one side of it.
And you were living in the other side.
And I was living in the other.
Okay.
And then when I realized, again, not having all these, courses and everything else, sometimes things, kind of organically come to you, but they don't come all at one time. You say, wow, this person is paying half of my payment. And I say, if I move out there, then a new person is going to be paying the other half of the payment. And so therefore, it's going to be debt-free for me. And so I ended up buying another house. And I said, so, we live there. And then when we ended up buying a third house, we decided to turn that into a rental property. And so therefore, the best thing I would say about property, if it's working and if it's income producing, is, never sell it. So, two of the houses that I've had over the last, 30 some years or so or longer, they're rental property. So, sometimes people are so quick to sell an asset that is paying for itself. And I said, it may be slow, but there's no such thing as bad profit. I said it may be slow profit, but over time it's going to be great. It's going to be good profit. So to do that, and in a few years, your rents are always going to increase, and with your rents increasing, that's more money to help you on the home that you're living in, and plus these are more write-offs. The thing you're looking for is, what is an asset that gives me taxable deductions that I can use? And I don't know anything, greater than real estate. Stocks may be good, but it's gambling. Real estate,
Yes.
That's why they call it real, REAL, estate. It's real. It doesn't move. There is no tool like it anywhere in the world, because it has a tax ID and it has a portion where it is. So it's real. So if you're going to own an asset, make sure it's real. That's not going to be something that's here today and gone tomorrow.
Right. And you have control over it.
You have complete 100% control over it.
What about trapped equity? What's your thoughts on that? Because there are a lot of people that would say, well, you have all that equity sitting in the house, all that money sitting in the house, and it's not working for you. You're not doing anything with it. Do you, or have you done like cash out refis in order to help you grow your portfolio and kind of keep that ball rolling? What does that look like for you?
Well, everyone, Shannon, has a different goal, and I've never had the, the phase that I want to be the first one on the mountaintop. I want to be higher than anyone else would go. I've never set out in my goals to be the biggest, the best, the largest, or anything else like that. I've come to a point where what makes me comfortable, or where I am, what I can handle. And so you're right, because all of the properties that we have in our portfolio is 100% paid off. I said, if I went out there and had it appraised, this property that I paid this for is triple or something else like that. Is there money on the table that I could get out and do something with? Probably, yeah, I'm sure I could. But the question I would ask, just for me and not the listeners, is why? You know, I'm comfortable with where I am. I'm at an operating speed and temperature that I'm okay with. It's nothing to impress anyone else but me, that I'm comfortable with, you know, with where I am. And so my thoughts more now is, you know, where am I going to make charitable contributions? What kind of legacy that do I want, you know, after my time on earth is gone? So it's those about dad equity and pulling the money out and doing something else. You know, I guess if my kids were, you know, 2 or 3 years old instead of 32 and 37 years old, maybe I would. But they are comfortable, and I'm comfortable. So I'm good with where I am.
Do you prefer single families these days or multifamilies? Or did you start with one and then build up to the other?
Well, I really did try to do both of those. I always try to look at it, you know, as a deal. I never forget when we, you know, I bought a 44 unit, would probably be considered a CD property, and again, for all those years I was the one man band, and this one here needed rehab, so we never got a rehab company. We were rehabbing with my son and another person. We were rehabbing while we were renting units. We would get one unit and work on it and rent it and do that. So, I mean, we just probably did things that most great entrepreneurs would say, I don't think that's the formula that you wanted to use, that you should use on that. But I never went into a large debt on rehabbing property or anything else like that. But you asked about multifamily, and I agree with what the gurus say. If you want to build wealth, you know, then have multifamily, because, you know, that was a 44 unit complex. And so if I put the same 44 fridge, stoves, everything else in, or if I had to go there and do a repair, I'm on there and I got 44 units I can work in. If it's single family and they're not in the same community, I may be driving across town, out of town, wherever to be able to get to that. But I found that during the last couple of years, when I see how property has gone up in value, I may go back and look at Zillow or something else, and I mean, my mouth is left open with what that property is valued at now.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah, compared to what I purchased it at. So, I mean, there's a lot of money that would be on the table if I had a need to pull it out to be able to use it. But I know it has, the single families have appreciated much, much more than my multifamily units.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. What drives you?
That's a great question.
Because you're doing this how many years now?
I think I'm in I'm saying in property, it's 45 years, but the thing...
Can I ask how old you are?
Oh, yeah. Hey, every day I live on this earth, I thank my God. So I'm 70 years old.
And you're still doing it. So, I mean, I just find that interesting. I'm just always curious, like, what drives you? Because you, in all the years that I've known you, I don't know that I've ever, you know, you've always, like you said, you've always gone at your own pace. It's never been a competition for you with anybody else. It's just you doing you at the speed that you're comfortable with to get what's worked for you and your family and your long-term goals. Have you hit those goals at this point? I mean, from the outside looking in, I would think you have. I mean, it looks to me like you have. I mean, I think you're a very successful entrepreneur from the outside looking in. So what drives you now? Like what drove you in 1975, I'm sure is different from where you are in life now. So what's the I know it's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, well, I guess, being driven, it's almost the old cliche is not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of it's not the size of the dog that's in the fight, but the fight that's in the dog. And I've said I've always been like this. I mean, when I went to school and went on a scholarship, and my scholarship went away, and I had to go and work, to be able to get my degree, and realize coming from a small southern town that that's not where I saw my life at. And so the only person could make a difference in leaving and doing something else, had to be me. And so it's, whatever I'm doing, I always feel, driven. Let's get it done. Let's, if there's a hill, if there's a mountain, let's take it. Not to be the one that get on top to hold the flag and say, I did it, but just one that there's a mountain to climb, and why not me? Why not go for that? And so what I do now, has never been for money. Money doesn't move me. It doesn't drive me. It's not one that I get to one day and said, well, now we can have this type of house. We can have this vacation house, in the Bahamas, and we can do this, and we can do that, and we can go there. And those are great goals to have. But my point is, once you get to that goal, and once you have that house or you have that vacation home, what do you do then?
It's all material.
Yeah. But I said, if you're driven, these things don't mean that much to you. I mean, I would like to have a home that's safe and good for my family. I would want to drive a car that I don't have to worry about, calling AAA every time I turn a corner. But, those, other than those things, it's people that I feel like my investment is in, is relationship. Who can I mentor? Who can I encourage? Who can I lift up? Those are the nuggets that, keep me going, more so than the money that comes out of the business.
Sorry, I'm just soaking it all in. Well, no, because you're right? I mean, I feel like I guess for me, what drives me is I want to be secure. I want to make sure that, I'm financially secure and comfortable, safe. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned safe. Yeah. I mean, these are things. So I guess it kind of goes back to, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? What are the main needs? The food, water, shelter, that sort of thing. And so those are important to me. Part of it is, and I think for you too, the generational wealth, being able to, take care of the ones we love and help them, lift them up to go higher and further than we have. But I agree with you. I mean, it's so funny. Like right now, you can't buy a vacation home. Like all of the stuff in the mountains. Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, I looked up Banner Elk, and the lowest price home I could find was $600,000. And there's nothing out there. Like people are buying vacation homes, and to me, it's almost like, and I think on the surface, the idea sounds good. And I just had this conversation with Jeff, who's another investor, and he was saying how he had bought a mountain home, and initially his family and him, they would go up like, all the time. And then you go up like, once every couple weeks, then you go up once a month. And then, so on the surface, the vacation home sounds great, but I almost think it's almost like when people put a pool in their backyard, right? You use the pool all the time. And then eventually it just becomes this thing in the middle of your backyard. Right. It kind of loses its allure. I mean, the mountain homes, I like the idea if you're going to potentially, if you're okay with using the vehicle of, potentially Airbnb-ing it and renting it out. But like you said, it's all just material things. And so what really, I really like what you said about trying to help others, because you have a wealth of knowledge in your lifetime with what you've done. And I love the fact that you're a fantastic sounding board. And if at any time I want to just kind of sit down and talk with you and say, hey, Tom, I'm thinking about this, or what's going on with this, and you always give very sound advice. You're not the wild, wild west. You're not going in gangbusters, and you're like the tortoise and the hare. To me, rehabbers, and of which I am one, we're the hares. We're the ones that are jumping to get to the front of the line, but it's small carrots all along the way, and yet the tortoise eventually gets to the finish line, and I just think you're in such a better place long term than I think rehabbers are. And I think a lot of times with investors, wholesalers like it because it's the quick buck,
right?
And the rehabbers like it. For me, partially it's I like helping to improve a neighborhood. That to me is where I feel like I leave my mark.
Right.
Is if I can take a property that's been kind of neglected, and I can make the neighborhood pretty again, and I can give somebody a pretty home to live in, and make a living at that at the same time. I think that's wonderful. But I do like the idea of the long-term wealth building with landlording.
Well, you said something tremendously interesting, because that's how I feel also. Anytime I have a property, I don't care where it is, I don't care what size it is, whenever I go in there and prepare it, I do it as if I'm moving in.
Yeah.
So it always fits my standards that I want. If I can move in here, then I have no problem with highlighting it for someone else to move in.
Yeah.
But I've also found, through some investment strategies of, finding an investor who has the knowledge of coming out there and tearing something down that's dilapidated, and being able to put a new home up there. And even though I may have only been a money investor in it, I am just as proud of that process as I am anything else, because here we have just created a house, a home, for a family to live in and to play in and grow up in, and so
create memories.
Yes, so those things make me feel really good. If my bandwidth of property manager, I've never got into the point of being a builder and learning all of the segues that you need to do that. But there are great people who have that skill set that may just need some funds or something else to help them to invest in that. And so when it happens and when the home is built, I take as much excitement from that as if I put the first nail or move the first shovel of dirt from there, as if I created that.
I get it.
Yeah.
Every time I work with my builders, I get so crazy excited.
Yes.
And you're right. Like, I'm very periphery in that picture, but I get so excited for them, and I get excited for what's coming out of the ground and what's being created.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think it's very, very cool.
Absolutely.
Are you still actively purchasing properties at this stage, or are you sort of on autopilot at this point?
Well, as you know, I would tell anyone that in Charlotte, if you could take a cardboard box and put it together and put a top on it, it would probably be something you could sell. This is probably the hottest in my lifetime of my time being in Charlotte.
It's insane
that this market is. And so if I don't have to have, dollars to do something with, to buy it at its highest price, unless I was going to do something with, maybe renting rooms or something else that or maybe Airbnb, something that would double or triple the income. I don't see in my schedule of buying something at the highest price and just rent it as a single family home, knowing that your return is not going to...
You're diminished.
Yeah, going to be there. So there's no desperation for acquisition for me to do that. So currently, as you said, I'm probably more on autopilot.
So let's flip the script on that. We are in a super hot market where we're seeing values that we've not really seen before. Are you tempted at all to sell any of your properties?
Well, sometimes I'll look at that, and matter of fact, last summer, because I realized, that the capital gains is just going to be bad. But again, capital gains really isn't my money. It's not my blood, sweat, and tears. It's the appreciation of something that was there that I didn't exactly can take full credit for it. So even if I have to pay capital gains, it's really not my money, because my money was what made the acquisition. And so if it was $30,000 and now it's worth $120,000, $150,000, I have to understand, Uncle Sam is going to get some of that, but he's getting something that I didn't earn myself. So I have to look at it from a different point of view, and whether or not this would be the time to sell it. But again, it's not selling properties; it's selling families, it's selling relationships, it's selling all of that. And I'm not sure that's where I am today. Now, maybe tomorrow, sell.
Well, and it's funny. I have a financial friend that we were talking about capital gains, because I was all up in arms. And he said, capital gains is not necessarily a bad thing. It means you made money.
Right.
If you're paying Uncle Sam, it's because you've made money. You haven't lost any. And I went, okay, I can kind of swallow that.
Absolutely.
I can live with that. So, and then as far as your exit strategy down the road, talking about capital gains, I mean, have you given any thought to that? Because when you have a portfolio such as yours, does it make sense to sell one or two off? I mean, I know other long-time landlords that are selling off, maybe 1 to 3 properties a year, because they don't want to get totally killed on their capital gains.
Right.
And so they're trying to space it out as they're transitioning. Or for you, is it more of the legacy that you're leaving to your children, that's not even an issue or a concern for you, that'll just, go down the generational wealth and then pipeline, and then whatever they choose to do.
Well, that's a great question, Shannon. And, it's almost like it's really a deep introspective that a person would have to, make. My kids, I raised them to be independent. And so none of the 3 are actually in the business, but none of the 3 asked us for any money at all during the year. So my goal of making them independent, has worked.
That's wonderful.
The other thing is, sometimes things that you didn't work for may not become an asset. It could easily be a liability. I don't think that if they got all of this, they would just do that with. And I remember one time talking about the game of Monopoly. I said, when you play Monopoly, you at the end of the game, you take the banks and the money and everything else, and you put it back in the box. I said, in the real game of Monopoly in life, you put the banks and the money and all that stays, and they take you and they put you in the box. So that's the difference between playing Monopoly and living Monopoly.
That's cheery.
So I don't know whether or not I have gauged when I would be someone would be putting me in the box. I'm still trying to go around. I'm still using the dice and getting numbers and going around the table. So that part I have yet, to determine. But I would think that my wishes would be, that a lot of the funds would be going to charitable, organizations.
I love that.
That's what I would want to happen.
So as we're wrapping up, because I know we're just about out of time, is there any words of wisdom or anything you would like to say to anyone who may be listening to our podcast today? That what would you like them to take away, or any lessons or advice you want to impart?
I would just say, life is real. I believe in life. It's not your assets that you have. Life is a marathon, and there's always going to be bumps and falls and everything else along the way. But you have the ability, to get up, and you have the ability to, maintain your determination to get across the finish line. So I would encourage you, don't give up, whatever your circumstances are. And I'm not the brightest, smartest person in the box. And I know if I can do it, I know that you can do it also. But never, ever, ever, give up and never doubt your determination to make it.
I adore you. I have always adored you. Thank you. Thank you for coming and sitting down with me today.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Yeah. All right, guys. I hope you'll join us next time. Thank you.